This is the African Scientist, the only place where African voices speak science. We are live both on YouTube and on our podcast. Today, we have an aspiring doctor, a doctor from Africa. Her name is Claudia, and she is passionate about many things, and she's going to talk to us about something that she's really passionate about. So welcome, Claudia. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? What do you like? Everything.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Claudia Buhendwa. I'm from Congo, DRC, and right now I'm a student in China in Guangzhou. I'm in my third year of medical school, so I'm not yet a doctor, as you say, but we're getting there. Yeah, but so that's who I am. I've been living in China for almost 3 years now. It's been a journey.
Amazing. Yeah. It's awesome to have you here. You are my first guest on the African Scientist. I feel so...
Thank you.
This is so special.
No, it's my honor. Honestly, what you're doing, I love. It's amazing. And yeah, keep it up. It's great. It's great work.
Great. So I talked to Claudia a while back, and she told me about this amazing doctor from her home country who has done many amazing great things, especially in the medical field. And I know this doctor really inspires her, first because he comes from her own country, and then he's just an amazing human being. So Claudia, tell us a little bit about this doctor and what we can learn from him and why he inspires you so much.
So his name is Dr. Dennis Mukwege. He is a doctor from DRC Congo, which is my country, and I think he specialized in gynecology specifically. But specifically, what interested me in him was his work when it came to social issues and effects of like war and political issues that affected modern day people in the world, right, in Congo, specifically in the eastern region. And so he treated patients of sexual violence and victims of sexual violence. But actually he's most known because in 2018 he won the Nobel Peace Prize. And I think that's what brought his name global. I think that's what made him more global in the world today. Originally, there weren't really many Congolese doctors who were known globally or actually made an effect on society during that time. But after he got the Nobel Peace Prize in 2018, I think his name became more of a household name. Many people started to talk about him, and I think that's basically where I got inspiration from. His work was very inspiring. So one of the things that he started off doing actually was, after he studied medicine, he created a hospital in the eastern region of Congo, and that's actually the region where there's lots of conflict. Even till this day, there's lots of conflict. I think the conflict dates back to probably like the 1990s actually. During the Rwandan genocide, there were so many victims of war, and people who were getting sexually assaulted, and just so many things that were taking place, specifically with women and girls and all these things. And so his work really inspired me personally. So that's what happened.
Wow, this guy sounds like an incredible human being, and I am just inspired, and I am wondering from your experience as a medical student, do you think there is a lack of access for medical care, especially for women in Africa, especially in places that are underdeveloped or have been disturbed by war?
Yeah, definitely. I think especially in regions which have been affected by war, actually that's what happened. Even though in East Africa, in Congo, there wasn't specifically a war, a national or genocide, but actually it happened in Rwanda. And because there were so many refugees which came in, almost over 1 million actually came into Congo during that period of time. and so the healthcare system was very deprived because there were so many people that they didn't plan to care for in that area. Actually, also, one thing about me personally that I think also encouraged me to really think about these kind of issues is my father. He worked in that kind of region during that time, in a similar time, during the time that they in the late 1980s, early 1990s. And because my father is a medical doctor, so he worked in that region, and he would tell me sometimes about stories of how bodies would just be like rushed into the hospital, and there'll be lack of equipment and lack of workers. Just it was a mess during that time. And so I think as young people, being able to recognize our needs in Africa and being able to look at what we need and then find a way to fix it is one thing that we have to look out for. We have to look for and just look out for one another.
That's amazing. I have read about him and the fact that he was such a perfectionist when it comes to doing his work and when it comes to helping women recover from the wounds of war. And I'm wondering what influence this has to you as a doctor in training, that he would spend literal three or 4 hours on a procedure that should have only taken 1 hour. And he says in his mind he was just thinking about, what if this was his own child? What if this was his own wife?
Yeah, those type of stuff, like paying attention to detail and not being negligent, I feel like is so important, especially in a society where it's kind of like we're in a world where dog eat dog, that kind of mentality where if I don't fend for myself, then I will be eaten. But having people in this world who look out for one another, right, and who are not selfish or who are very just loving and caring to one another and considerate. These are the type of things that as young people we have to learn to develop and learn to take into context. There's like, I feel like as a society we're growing more selfish and more money orientated, right? Where we forget we're losing passion for certain things. And I feel like without that passion, we can't really succeed as a nation, as a continent, wherever we are, because it's so hard to have that emotional connection. But yeah, like what you said about Dr. Mukwege is that, yes, he really did take into consideration his patients. They were, like I said, he treated over hundreds and thousands. I think it was 500,000 women and like probably 200,000 children who were raped and killed during that time. And so he helped treat so many women, and he did it with a caring and loving heart, which I think that again was his passion, was something that he really loved to do and helped made him who he is.
Wow, that's amazing. And he didn't just treat the victims of these war crimes. He also made a whole hospital for them. It's called the Panzi Hospital. Have you been there before?
No, actually, but it's in the region that I'm from. Actually, I'm from the country. I'm not the country, sorry. The city that it's in, but I haven't been there before. So that would be a nice trip to make soon.
Oh wow, that is just amazing. And I think the fact that inspires me most is that most people would think that a doctor who is passionate about female health would be a female doctor. But the fact that he decided to fill this role and that it affected him so much really inspires me.
Yeah, I actually was one of those people earlier in my life, I would think. It's kind of weird that there are not as many female gynecologists or female females in general who would want to pursue that role as taking care of women and all these other things. But I think as well, just looking back into history, we come from countries and nations where only recently women were allowed to, vote, or women were allowed to be educated to that certain extent and to that level. And I think during his time, there weren't many women doctors. And so, and so it just makes sense that now, me as a woman, I'm inspired by what he does. And personally, I don't even know if I would like to grow up and be a gynecologist at this point or pursue exactly his role. But I think it's more his passion and more his drive that I look to.
He talks about how treating these women, how it affected him psychologically. Yes, we know that the rape and the victimization of these women really affected them, but nobody ever talks about the doctors who helped them to recover, the psychologists who helped them to recover. As a medical professional, what psychological toll do you think this can take on a doctor?
Well, speaking from experience, I would say experience in quotations because I'm not a doctor yet, but like I said, my father worked similar to what he did, I guess. I feel one thing that I see or that I've noticed is, I would say, like a lack of because there's so much happening around you all at once, you learn to kind of focus your mind on one particular thing, if that makes sense. And so I think it's very hard for a lot of people. I think it's a job that not a lot of people can do. Yeah, I think one psychological effect could be the draining of emotion and just draining of energy. I think it's very draining. It's a very draining job, and that's why I bring up passion so much, because when you have passion for something, despite the toll that it gives on you, that it brings on you, and the effects that it has, the passion is still there and it drives you. Like I said, it's not a job for everyone, but it's also just something that, again, I aspire to in him, Dr. Dennis Mukwege, is because he was so passionate, and you could see it in the work that he did and in the things that he said.
I think many people think that sexual violence against women only exists in places of underdeveloped places like Africa or whatever, but sexual violence against women is even there in the developed world. Yeah, and I guess many people don't really see it because they don't work in hospitals, they don't work in the gynecology department or whatever. What can you tell us about this?
I would say that one thing about sexual violence against women as well, and not only against women, even against men, it's kind of a taboo topic. It's kind of one of those topics that's very sensitive and very, like, you don't want to tell a lot of people, or you don't want to make it a big deal, especially when it's done on a not as large scale. For example, during the Rwandan genocide, it was done on a large scale, so there were millions and hundreds and thousands of women who were raped and killed, and so that we're able to talk about it. But in developed countries where it might not be happening on like such a large scale, it may be happening to one or two people or the people around you. It's something that people are ashamed to talk about, which is very understandable, because I mean, it's something that should never happen to anyone. But I feel like people being open to have these conversations and listening to one another, acknowledging and just being there for each other, is something that we need to learn to acquire. But yeah, like I mentioned before, it's not only in African countries, it's all over the world. And I would argue actually sexual violence against men is even less talked about. It's something that is it's kind of looked at as shameful, just because we have these gender norms and stereotypes that people are so cling to, right? So yeah, but I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of. I think there's so many long-term physical and psychological harms that it brings, and talking about it and sharing your story so that someone else can learn from it is something that we should do and help.
Wow, thank you for bringing in the aspect of sexual violence against men, because I think many people forget about that. There was an attempt, and when I read this, I was really surprised that there was an attempt on his life by some people who thought he was too, I don't know, he was trying to set the record straight. He was trying to call for the prosecution of the people who committed these atrocities, and there was an attempt on his life.
Yeah, not to get too political about that point, but I think there were two attempts on his life, actually. One in his earlier days, and I think one most recently or something. But yeah, it just shows that there's people who are always going to be against you, or who are always not going to support you in that sense, I guess. Sometimes, especially, I don't know if it's the Congolese thing, but there's so many politicians, I think, due to corruption and other things, that when they see a nation or something or someone prospering, instead of encouraging, we choose jealousy, and we choose to push them down. And I think that's something so cruel. And yeah, I think that's what I keep bringing it up, but the passion that we have to develop our countries, and to develop our continent, because I do believe that Africa has the capacity to be like self-sufficient, to grow, and to be even better than any other continent. With the use of its resources and so much more. That's if we unite and if we're able to support each other.
Wow, thank you. As you train to be a doctor, what impact would you like to have on Africa and on your country? How would you like to change the world?
Well, one step at a time. I think that's a very hard question. No. Because I don't know. I mean, there's so much that has to be done that sometimes I look back and I'm like, where do I start though? There's the issue of education, the issue of poverty, the issue of unemployment. There's so much more, and that's what I mean. I can't do this on myself. No one can do it on their own. We have to be able to use each other and the resources that we have. And I think a simple resource that we have that we take for granted is Google, the internet. How are we using the internet and the resources that we have around us to impact the lives of the people around us? You don't necessarily have to, your aim doesn't necessarily have to be to change a whole nation, because again, that's so hard. But start by the people around you, start by your friends, your family, educating them, and using that, not only educating and doing research, but using that research to further in what you're passionate about. Find something that you love, something that when you do, you don't feel it's a task and it's taking a toll on you. Something that you can see yourself doing for years and years and years, which again, it's hard. Not a lot of people have a passion yet, but finding it and using it to the best of your ability is, I think, key. Using your knowledge to influence the world. So me personally, I don't think I have found that yet. I don't think I have reached that point in life where I'm like, okay, I know what I want to do. This, and this is how I'm going to do it. So I'm also talking as a learner. I mean, I'm also learning every day. I learn and I grow. And I think if everyone is able to do that, to use what we have even simple education that we've acquired in high school, primary school, whatever. These small things I think we take for granted. So, and also just not pushing the blame on other people, because there are people who look to other people and say, oh, you're the reason I can't do this, or this is why I can't do this. But despite that, what can you do? So instead of saying, I can't do this because of this, but you can say, I did this despite this. And I think that's a powerful message. Yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's true, because Africa is full of so many resources, even human resources. And yeah, I think that we should all aspire to make Africa better, to make it grow. I think the way I found to do that in the recent time has been to amplify the work that scientists are doing around Africa. Yeah, so if you like this kind of stuff, yeah, subscribe to this channel so that we can get more scientists here and talk to them. Oh, and if you are an African scientist and you would like to be featured on this channel, please reach out to me on my social media and also on the email address that will be left in the description. Thank you so much. So Claudia, as we wind up, what would you like to tell the viewer or the listener as a parting shot?
Well, I guess one thing I've kept bringing it up, but I still will, is keep your passion, keep your drive, use what you have, that spark inside of you as a young person, a young African. Use whatever you could use to help to grow your country, your people around you, our continent, in whatever way possible. Don't deprive yourself of anything. Research, just gain knowledge, influence whoever you can influence in the right direction, and just be passionate.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's that.
Thank you so much, Claudia. I wish you a lot of success in your work as a medical student. I hope that you become the bright, shining light that Africa needs in the medical field. Yeah, and as you said, like young people, we should try our best to try and equip ourselves and try and focus on ways we can make Africa better, make Africa greater, and add value wherever we are. Yeah, if you are listening to this on our podcast, head on over to our YouTube channel and subscribe. There's great content there. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. This has been The African Scientist, science from an African perspective. Until next time.